And we are on the Mark Hoke Show, and we are very excited to, well, bring in the man from Impact and soon to be TNA. And you can smile, Josh. It's okay. You're allowed. He is the walking weapon, Josh Alexander. Josh, welcome to the Mark Hoke Show. We are very proud to have you on. Welcome.
Well, thank you for having me. And, it's hard not to smile when you say those three letters, TNA. So I might be smiling a lot for this interview.
Yeah, we're going to ask you about that coming up here in a little bit. Of course, we got Impact Final Resolution coming up here on Saturday, December 9th. You're going to be teaming up with Zack Sabre Jr., taking on the Motor City Machine Guns up in Toronto. And then coming up here in Las Vegas, and we don't say Impact anymore, it's going to be TNA Hard to Kill at the Palms Casino Resort, Saturday, January 13th, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, where you're going to be facing off with Will Ospreay. Plus, we got TV tapings, Snake Eyes on the 14th, starting at 4:30. And, of course, I want to kind of start there with Will Ospreay. You faced off with him just a little while ago. What was that like taking on Will Ospreay?
It was everything you could think it was going to be and more. I think, I've followed Will Ospreay for several years now, at least like the last 8 since he debuted in New Japan and has done his, all the work he's done there. I've been following it closely. Like, it's hard to say there's a better all-around wrestler in the world right now than Will Ospreay. I mean, you talk about 2023 and you see the names he's beat along the way, and adding myself to that list, unfortunately, as somebody who's lost to Will Ospreay, but being able to step foot in the ring with him, in front of an Impact crowd, and just keep that momentum growing that we've been building, and showing that we have some of the best wrestlers in the world in this locker room going against some of the very best in the world, from outside like Will Ospreay. I was honored to get that matchup and represent Impact and TNA wrestling.
So now you're going to face him again in Vegas.
Well, not confirmed yet, actually.
Okay.
Post-match, after our first match, we had like 7 or 8 minutes. We just talked and went back and forth in the ring, and he had said that he wants to come back and wrestle in TNA. Not that he wants, he needs to. And I laid out the challenge, man. If he needs to come back and he wants to step foot in the TNA ring, it's going to be against me. So we will see if that challenge is accepted, if that does happen. And, if it doesn't, then, that's not on me, man. I'm doing my best.
All right. Fair enough. Well, of course, the TNA name is coming back, and a lot of people were questioning, well, why are we doing that? And I swear to God, I thought Scott D'Amore was going to, have a coronary when he made that announcement. He was so excited about it. And what does that mean to everybody now that Impact is going back to being called TNA? What is the significance of that to all of you there?
I think the significance of it is brand recognition, first and foremost. Over the past few years, I've been with Impact Wrestling nearly 5 years now. Every time I cross the border or go through security in an airport and they ask me what I'm doing, I say I'm wrestling. They say, for who? If I say Impact Wrestling, they might know. And then if they don't know, I say, well, have you heard of TNA? And they go, yeah. And I go, well, the same company. So, it's just brand recognition, because everybody remembers those good old days that inspired the locker room that we have now. Other than people like Frankie Kazarian, Chris Sabin, Alex Shelley, people that were part of TNA in the past, everybody like myself, Jordan Grace, Chris Bay, Ace Austin, the list goes on. We were inspired by those 3 letters, by TNA in the heyday when we were coming up and we were like teenage kids just with a dream. And I know for me personally, being able to see the likes of Samoa Joe and AJ Styles and all this stuff, that changed my entire life. That showed me that I didn't have to be 6'6" and muscle bound like Batista, the other guy I was watching on the other network on television at the time, to become a pro wrestler. I saw that wrestlers came in all shapes and sizes, and their athleticism and their presentation is what could, make them be great pro wrestlers. And that's what inspired me to just get in a ring and start training for the very first time. And now, luckily, all thanks, the man up top, or whatever you do believe in, I'm able to be a part of that now. January 13th, when TNA comes back, it's a dream come true.
You can't seem to get away from the Motor City Machine Guns and all those guys. And in a way, it's kind of funny that you've been tangling with them for so long. But at the same time, I think it also says something about TNA and the loyalty that a lot of you have to that company. Why does everybody love being there so much? And what is it about you and them that you just can't seem to separate from them, and the road always goes back to the Motor City Machine Guns with you guys?
Well, there's always been a little bad blood with me and the Machine Guns. I grew up an enormous fan of them. They revolutionized tag team wrestling in the early 2010s. They inspired tag teams like the Young Bucks. I don't think the Young Bucks would have been the same tag team if they hadn't had these historic matches and time in the ring with somebody like the Motor City Machine Guns. And for me personally as a fan, loved them. Then I had this historic longest tag team title reign ever. The first championships I held in Impact Wrestling, and that was ended by the Motor City Machine Guns. And then I've always had Alex Shelley kind of behind me, chasing after me while I had that world championship. And then when I got hurt, he ended up being champion. I had to chase him, just being able to step foot in the ring with these guys. Chris Sabin, who I think is one of the most underrated wrestlers in all of pro wrestling, and Alex Shelley, who, his resume speaks for itself. He's inspired a generation and a style of pro wrestling all on his own, both in singles and tag team competition. Being able to step foot in the ring with these guys, it's a dream come true for somebody like me who watched them as a teenager before I ever got, into wrestling myself. But now as a competitor, like the walking weapon character is not that all different than the real man you're seeing right here as Josh Alexander right now. I just want to compete. And to compete, I got to get in the ring with the very best. And Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin are two of the very best in our locker room. And I think that's why we get in the ring so often.
And I think it's been amazing recently just how well people are receiving what's been going on at Impact. And for a while, I think some people kind of dismissed Impact, but over the past few years, especially, and especially under what you were doing as world champion, people started saying, "Wow, what's going on over there is really terrific." What do you think has been the key for everybody to really start tuning back into Impact and saying, "Man, there's an unbelievable amount of talent, some unbelievable matches," and everybody's just been saying, "Man, I got to tune in and go and watch these guys go at it again."
I think it starts from management all the way down. When Scott D'Amore took over, right before I started, I think 5 or 6 years ago now, he changed the way it was going to be a slow build. You had to regain momentum. You had to right the wrongs that were done in the past where we kind of turned fans away. And we had to bring it back. And we knew it was going to be a slow thing, but, we had to be consistent. So the entire writing for the show had to be consistent. All the in-ring product and the matches had to be consistent. And the one thing that I think makes you a great pro wrestler is being able to be dependable and consistent every time you step foot in the ring, no matter who you're in the ring with, no matter what size they are, what style they might have, being able to just synergistically mesh and put on something that, wows the crowd and makes it memorable. And I think that there's so many people in our locker room from the top down, whether it be myself, Eddie Edwards, Moose, Frankie Kazarian, over to the Knockouts, Deanna Parazzo, Jordan Grace, Kylan King now coming up, Tag Team Vision, ABC, the Rascals, all these, we all take great pride in what we do. When we go out there and we have a match, we want to have the very best match every single time to make sure the crowd goes home and they're not saying, to their friends, "Oh, that show was all right." They're saying, "You got to go to this show the next time we're here." The best business card that we can have to send out there is putting the very best product we have in the ring every single time to make sure the crowd goes home happy. And when the crowds are going home now, the momentum is growing because they're telling their friends, they're telling people how good the shows are. And people are finally tuning back in Impact Wrestling, TNA Wrestling, soon to be in January. And I think that's where all the momentum comes from.
And we're on the Mark Hoke Show with Impact / TNA's Josh Alexander. And Josh, what is it like to work with Scott D'Amore? Because, you see him on TV, and that man seems to be willing to do just about anything to get this company over. And it's amazing to watch. What is it like being under his stewardship?
I mean, it's the best. Like I can't compare him to any other boss because this is the only company I've worked for since I broke out into television and all this stuff. But just to have a guy that's as passionate about the product as everybody that's going in there and risking their lives every time they have a match and risking their health, you know what I mean? And just to have that sense of pride to want to put the best product out there every single time, like Scott. He's a very honest man, but he's a very fair man. Like if you go out there and you do something that he's like might not agree with, he'll hear you out first, but at the end of the day, he wants the very best product in that ring at all times. So we all share that in common. And I think it just makes for an easy time, especially when your boss has the same mindset as you.
Now, of course, you were just coming off being the longest reigning Impact World Champion. And in an era for a while where championships were changing hands very quickly, we've now seen a time period where in many companies, champions are holding on to their titles for a year or so or longer. Why do you think that that has changed now?
Ooh, I can't say for sure why. I think that it's kind of a pushback on what, the attention span of fans in general, not just wrestling fans, have these days. I think that because of social media and because there's so much wrestling to consume on a weekly basis, I think fans have a very what's next mentality. Like when I was chasing Moose and I finally defeated Moose, everybody was behind me, everybody was ready. And then a couple months after that, I could kind of feel the crowd shifting to being into that. What's next? When's Josh going to lose? Who's he going to lose it to? And that interest. But there's also an interest on the flip side of, every time they're clamoring for, say, Alex Shelley to beat me at Emergence when I defended it, or, Eddie Edwards to defeat me at Bound for Glory when I defended it on that historic run I was on. Every time it doesn't happen, it gets people talking a little bit more, getting people to wonder what's next, when I might lose it. The longer the sustainable title run can happen, that's when you're in for bigger and bigger surprises. And unfortunately, due to my injury, we never got to pay off that surprise and really, have that happen, which, sucks for me because, you don't get to end the story. But yeah, I think that has something to do with it. The longer reigns make for a bigger conversation piece at the water cooler for all the fans talking the next day.
But you did get some water cooler talk out of the end of the story, though, because if people didn't see it, when you did relinquish the title, you were in the ring with your wife and your son. And when you went to hand the title over, if they didn't see it, your son came over and tried to grab the belt. And how old was your son at the time? He was, 4, I believe?
Yeah, he was 4 years old.
Came over and grabbed the title and ran back over to your wife. And you guys had to convince him to give the belt back up. One of the cutest and most touching moments you might have ever seen in professional wrestling. And I don't, and I'm just curious, what was going through your mind when that whole thing was going on? And did you guys plan it out, or was that spontaneous?
All spontaneous. Like everything I said that night was just all spontaneous for me. Like when I got my notes for what I'm doing, all it said was go out there and talk. Just speak from the heart, say whatever you want to say. And that's one of the first times that's happened to me in Impact Wrestling. So I just went out there, grabbed the microphone, and I just started blabbing. And it was all genuine because, in those moments when you get hurt and you don't know how serious it is, like I literally flew from surgery the day before to the town to make TVs to relinquish that title.
Wow.
And, other than the physical pain, you're going through the emotional anguish of being like the uncertainty in that moment of, am I ever going to be able to be the same again? That's one of like the most heart-wrenching things because I'd worked so hard to get to that point, doing these things that I never dreamed possible. I was literally living my dream in that moment. And yeah, giving up the belt, that sucked. The second I tried to hand it over, my son grabbing it out of my hands because, not that he thinks it's his, but he thinks that belongs to me. To this day, right now, I don't have that world championship. And every time I come back from an Impact Wrestling show, he asks me if I got it back. And I have to disappoint him every single time.
No way.
Yeah.
Oh.
That's the tough balance with pro wrestling and being a champion when you have kids. And I'm lucky enough to be my son's, superhero. He doesn't like Batman. He doesn't like anything like that. He believes in Josh Alexander first and foremost above anything else. And, it's a little gut wrenching for me, but it's also motivating at the same time to get back to where I was.
So when is that time coming? Come on, Josh, you got to get that title back soon.
Oh, I know I do, but I don't know about soon. I'm coming off 2 singles losses, both Alex Shelley and Will Ospreay, back to back. And I can't say that Josh Alexander pre-tricep injury from a year ago would have lost those 2 matches. I need to get back to being myself and being comfortable in the ring like I was before. And, unfortunately to this day, I'm still not as comfortable as I am. And I think that's what I attribute to having those losses on those big stages like I have been.
Well, I'm sure it's going to happen soon enough. So we're going to look forward to seeing you be the TNA champion somewhere down the road.
I mean, I like the sounds of that. And if I'm not trying to win the world championship, I don't know what I'm doing in this business. So that is my sole goal, moving forward. It's just when it's going to come to fruition, we'll see.
Well, I really do appreciate you coming on the show, but I got to give you a shot here real quick to tell everybody What can they expect if they come out January 13th to the Palms to see everybody from TNA, and we get to say TNA, TNA, TNA once again at the Palms Casino on January 13th? What are they going to see?
You're going to see one of those talented, well-rounded, most motivated locker rooms in all of pro wrestling. I think that goes without saying. Anybody that comes in from any other company and they step foot in our locker room, the one thing they say is like the passion is completely electric. It's something that is just it just spreads all the way across the locker room, and it just raises the bar for everybody else. It lets you know that you're going to have to go out there and work your ass off, because the match before you is going to be just as good as, or if not better than, anything you're going to put out. So you're going to have to work real hard to keep raising that bar as we go on all the way through the main event. Trust me, as somebody who's been in countless Impact Wrestling main events in the past, I've gone out there so many times being like, man, I don't know how I'm going to follow that or follow this. And you just got to go out there, grit your teeth, and, give your best shot every single time. And I think every fan's going to go home seeing a little bit of everything on our show. We have a variety show. We have people like Joe Hendry who are extremely entertaining, get the crowd involved. We have some of the best in-ring talents in the world, be it myself, Alex Shelley, Frankie Kazarian, the list goes on. The knockouts are second to none in this business. I think our female division is the best in all of pro wrestling. So you're going to go home seeing a little bit of everything, and I guarantee you're going to get your money's worth.
Well, Josh, I want to thank you for coming on the Mark Hoke Show. We really do appreciate it. I know I'm clearing my weekend out. May just get a room over there at Palms Place and hang out with everybody. It should be a great time, and we'll look forward to seeing you. Whether it's Will Ospreay or somebody else, it's going to be awesome to see you going at it at the Palms on January 13th. Thanks for coming on. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. I can't wait to hear all those TNA chants January 13th.
Should be great. Thank you very much, bud.